You have this quiet feeling that your standards, your goals, even your idea of what a good life looks like, none of it is fully yours, and you're right. Somebody placed those numbers in your head, not with force, not with propaganda, with something more subtle. By the end of this video, you'll understand the psychological weapon the wealthy have quietly used on you since you were a kid, the anchoring trap, and why almost every price, salary, and expectation you accept as reasonable was engineered to feel that way. Stay to the end, because the last section is the one most people skip, and it's the only one that actually rewires how you see the game. 2 questions to hold on to. Why do luxury brands sell handbags for the price of a car when almost nobody buys them? And why does the ambition of everyone around you seem to peak at the exact same modest number? Both have the same answer. In 1974, 2 psychologists named Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky ran an experiment that should be taught in every high school and isn't, on purpose. They put people in front of a wheel of fortune, rigged to land on either 10 or 65. After the wheel stopped, they asked the participants a completely unrelated question. What percentage of countries in the United Nations are African? People who saw the number 10 guessed around 25%. People who saw the number 65 guessed around 45%. The wheel had nothing to do with geography. Everyone knew it was random. It didn't matter. First number their brain saw became the anchor everything else was measured against. This is anchoring bias. Your mind doesn't evaluate things in a vacuum. It evaluates them against the first reference point it's given. And here's the part that should make you sit up, you can't turn it off. Kahneman himself, the guy who discovered it, admitted he still falls for it. It's not a flaw you can willpower your way out of. It's how the software runs. Now think about what that means. Whoever sets the first number in any conversation, a price, a salary, a standard, a definition of success, controls the entire frame around it. Everything after is just people adjusting up or down from an anchor someone else placed. If this is landing, save this video. You'll want to come back to this one, because we're about to get into where those anchors actually come from, and it's not random. Here's a question nobody asks. Why does Hermes sell a Birkin bag for $80,000? Not because $80,000 of leather went into it. The materials cost maybe $800. The answer isn't the bag. The answer is what the bag does to every other bag in the store. This is called price anchoring, and every luxury brand on earth uses it. Rolex puts a $200,000 Daytona in the window not to sell it, to make the $12,000 Submariner feel like a bargain. Restaurants put a $120 steak on the menu not because they expect you to order it, but because the $60 steak next to it suddenly reads as reasonable. Apple didn't just release the iPhone, they released 3 tiers so the middle one felt sensible. There's a name for this in behavioral economics. It's called the decoy effect, and Dan Ariely proved it in study after study. Give people 2 options, they compare on features. Give people 3 options where one is a strategically bad deal, and they cluster around the option you wanted them to pick from the start. Now zoom out. This isn't just retail. This is how every negotiation you'll ever be in works. The first person to name a number wins. Salary negotiation, whoever anchors first sets the ceiling. Rent, car deals, business contracts, even dating, the first standard set becomes the reference point everyone else adjusts around. But here's what nobody tells you. This game isn't only being played on your wallet, that's the small version. The big version is being played on your ambition, and that one is worth billions. Which brings us to the part I said we'd get to where it stops being about products and starts being about you. Ask a random person in their 20s what rich means. Watch what happens. They'll say something like 150,000 a year, maybe 200. Almost nobody will say 10 million. Almost nobody will say 100 million. Not because those numbers don't exist, they exist by the thousands, but because the ceiling of what feels achievable has been anchored somewhere much, much lower than reality. Where did that anchor come from? School, media, the salary charts your career counselor showed you, the lifestyles you saw growing up, the starter salary posted on the job board. Every one of those was a number placed in front of you, and your brain quietly accepted it as the reference frame for the rest of your life. You didn't choose to think 70,000 a year is good. You were anchored into it. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago and wrote it down plainly. He said men judge more by the eye than by the hand. In other words, perception isn't a description of power. Perception is power. Whoever controls what you see as normal, possible, and out of reach controls what you'll even try for. He wasn't giving advice for princes. He was describing how every hierarchy that has ever existed maintains itself. Not by locking the door, by convincing you the door leads nowhere worth going. There's a reason the wealthy send their kids to boarding schools with other wealthy kids. It's not the curriculum, it's the anchor. When your first reference for a normal weekend is a private jet to Aspen, your definition of achievable is calibrated at an entirely different altitude than someone whose first reference was a road trip to the next state. Same intelligence, same work ethic, radically different anchors. And anchors don't feel like anchors from the inside, they just feel like reality. Here's the uncomfortable part. Your friends are anchoring you right now. People you spend the most time with are silently defining what a normal salary looks like, what a normal apartment looks like, what a normal ambition looks like. Not through any conversation, just by existing in your reference frame. This is why every serious study of wealth building, from Napoleon Hill in the 30s to the network science of today, comes back to the same conclusion. Your 5 closest contacts are not just your support system, they are your anchor set. Drop this in the comments. What number popped into your head when I said the word rich? Be honest, because that number wasn't random. Someone put it there. Here's the practical part, and I want you to hear this clearly because most videos on this topic end with a to-do list that changes nothing. This isn't that. Breaking an anchor isn't about affirmations. It's not about telling yourself you're worth more. Your subconscious ignores that. Anchors don't respond to opinions. They respond to new reference points. That's the whole game. First, start noticing the anchor before you react to it. When you see a price, a salary, a lifestyle, a standard, before you decide if it's high or low, ask one question. What was I comparing it against? That single pause is the difference between being played and playing. Naming the anchor kills half its power. Behavioral scientists call this cognitive diffusion, the moment you see the frame instead of looking through it. Second, deliberately expose yourself to higher anchors. Not to feel bad, to recalibrate. Read the biographies, study the deals. Follow the people who play at a level that currently feels unreasonable to you, not for motivation, for exposure. What feels absurd on day 1 starts feeling possible by day 90. This is the same mechanism used to sell you a Rolex, run in reverse. You're anchoring yourself on purpose instead of being anchored by accident. Third, and this is the one Machiavelli would have written in bold, refuse to name your number first. In salary talks, in deals, in negotiations of any kind, let the other person anchor, then adjust. Whoever speaks first in a negotiation is almost always the one who loses money. The wealthy know this. They wait. They ask. They let you set the frame you'll live inside. And finally, the reframe that matters most. Every anchor you accepted was placed there by someone who benefited from you accepting it. Your salary ceiling, your ambition ceiling, your idea of a good life, none of it was neutral. None of it was accidental. It was a number placed in front of you at a specific age by a specific system for a specific reason. You don't have to stay inside it. If you're the kind of person who wants the real framework, not fake positivity, not repackaged advice you've heard 100 times, but the actual rules, the top of the game runs on subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a drop. This channel is for the people who already sensed something was off and just needed someone to name it. Here's the one thing to hold on to. The world isn't rigged in the way most people think. It's not that the doors are locked. It's that someone put a number on the door that made you decide not to try it. The moment you start seeing the anchors instead of standing on them, the whole map redraws itself. You don't have to become a different person. You have to stop measuring yourself against numbers that were never yours to begin with. If this hit, my next video on how the wealthy weaponize scarcity to make you undervalue your own time will land even harder. That's the other half of this exact game, and it's where the real leverage lies.